And welcome back to the booth here in Vancouver. Marshall Sutcliffe with Ian Duke and Eric Froelich. All right, guys, we got one more quarterfinal to go for us three, and they're ready to go in the feature match area now. Let's go down for Pat Cox versus Matt Sperling. Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Magic Origins. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth. I've got Eric Froelich and Ian Duke with me, and we are excited to bring you quarterfinal coverage here on Sunday in Vancouver. We've got a nice matchup here too. You see Pat Cox in his third Pro Tour top 8. Now, Pat's got a lot on the line in this match. If he wins this match, he's going to be platinum. And that is huge for him, as it's going to allow him to keep traveling around the world playing Magic. His opponent, Matt Sperling, is platinum. Thanks to making the top 8 here, he has achieved that goal. And off we go. So let's talk about this matchup, Ian. We've got mono-red aggro for Pat Cox on the left-hand side, and Sperling's on Abzan control. What do you make of it?
So Sperling will definitely dominate the mid to late game of this matchup. So it's all about Pat Cox getting in as much early damage with his creatures as possible before his creatures sort of get brick-walled by the larger green creatures in Sperling's deck. Then his plan will be to finish the rest of the game with burn spells.
And Eric, how do you see this matchup as far as how do you think it'll play out? Ian just outlined what each player's trying to do. Who's going to be more successful at doing it?
I think Paul Rietzel had it right. I mean, no big surprise. A Hall of Famer, one of the best players in the world. Being on the play is a huge advantage. Being able to get your one-drops down quickly is very big, and Sperling's just basically trying to set up, and Pat is trying to make sure he cannot. Eventually, it's likely Sperling will start to set up. Pat Cox then needs to have enough burn spells to finish him off. There's a few cards that are really important to making sure that doesn't happen. Courser of Crewfix is a big one. This is going to make sure that Matt can keep hitting land drops, gaining life. Courser in multiples is very tough to beat. And of course, the card that we've seen so much of the past year, Siege Rhino.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Pat missing his second land drop, I assume, I think he mulliganed and probably scryed to the bottom. Looking for land. He's got some good threats. He's got his creatures coming in, like a decent spot to be in, but the burn spells cost 3 and 4 mana. This is not, no small task of getting to that point. And once the Siege Rhinos start coming down and Sperling's at a healthy, mid-range life total here. And
this is huge.
Wow, did Matt not draw a fourth land?
He does not have a fourth land. He's got 2 Siege Rhinos in his hand now, but he does have a Hero's Downfall to use on the Glory Chaser there. And wow, this is insane because Pat Cox still stuck on one
Courser's huge
land here. Draws a Courser Crewfix. Does he find a land with it? He does. Finds a Windswept Heath, puts himself back up to 10, and things are looking great for Sperling in game 1. He's going to be able to go Rhino, Rhino.
Yeah,
how the heck does the red deck beat that?
I could explain it very quickly for you. It doesn't.
It doesn't, yeah.
Thanks for that insight, Ephraim. That's why you're
you
here.
brought me in, yeah.
Yeah, the window quickly closing on Pat Cox here as he continues to miss land drops, and Matt Sperling transitions into his powerful mid-game.
Yeah, the Siege Rhino makes sure that the window doesn't stay open for more than a split second.
Yeah, Pat Cox in just a tough spot. Handful of spells, only 1 land.
He's multiple mana away from casting the big spells like Exquisite Firecraft, and Siege Rhinos just end the game very quickly.
Sperling's draw for the turn. Even more gasoline. It's a Den Protector, but it's Rhino time. So
Rhino and trigger it.
There it is, Siege Rhino, 13 to 15 after the attack from the Courser. And it's more non-land for Pat Cox, who has seen enough. It only took 1 Rhino this time. And that's going to do it for game 1. Matt Sperling defeats the single mountain draw there from Pat Cox. We'll be back right after these messages.
Standard is the name of the game at Magic Origins Game Day. Put what you learned from watching the Pro Tour into action on August 8th and 9th at your local game store. Visit magic.wizards.com/game day for more information. 24 players, one shot at immortality. Watch the best players in the world battle for the Magic World Championship starting Thursday, August 27th from PAX Prime in Seattle, Washington.
All right, a quick game one goes to Matt Sperling, which brings us, of course, to the time of sideboarding. Let's listen to what the players had to say about their plans for this matchup.
Okay, Pat Cox, a lot of line here for you. You're playing for more than just winning this tournament. You're playing for Platinum. What is your game two plan going into this sideboard?
Sure. So, Roast for sure. That's one of the main reasons we have in the deck. It kills Siege Rhino, also kills Courser, kills Tassiger, kills Fleeceman if we need to. You know, kills everything in his deck. It's great. Like, that's basically how they can beat us coming up the board. And then Heel Cutter for similar reasons. Like, basically, it gets past that one Siege Rhino. They don't have a lot of guys in play usually, unless they have Elspeth. So, and then we're taking out the Shocks. They're not very good against them for the reasons I just said. All their guys are big. And probably taking out a couple Lightning Berserkers. They're good against Languish, but I expect him to take Languish out because he's adding in creatures. So, yeah, that's probably where we're going with sideboarding.
Okay, good games the rest of the way in the top 8, Pat. All right, Matt Sperling. Game 2, what does the Abzan bring to the mountains?
Go. So Patrick Chapman likes to say, it's not about having all the best cards, it's about having all your bad cards come out of your main deck so that all your cards are productive. So there's going to be a number of these cards coming in, starting with 3 Fleeceman Lion, a card that we have in there to do double duty, but certainly part of that is against the aggressive decks. You want to cast a 2-mana spell to get the game started. That's one of our 3 2-mana spells. That's 3 of our 2-mana spells right there. Tassiger comes in because it's a good card as you're trading off with more of these. Ultimate Prize Drown, Pharika's Cure. Your graveyard starts to fill. That might cost 1 or 2 mana, and obviously it's a good blocker. Dromoka's Command. Between this and Pharika's Cure, these are the all-stars. I wouldn't say a dedicated card against mono, but close to it. The red decks will have Eidolons that are enchantments. They've got creatures to fight, and they've got, of course, burn spells that you want to prevent the damage. Worth noting that the Exquisite Firecraft can't be countered, but it can be prevented. Drown in Sorrow, playing against decks with a number of, that's somewhat self-explanatory. That's been a standard a long time. It's the go-to answer when you need a Wrath for little guys, and you get it at only 3 mana. Duress does come in as Thought Seizes come out. Duress is a way to not pay life and maybe hit one of those 4 damage. You're trying to hit one of those 4 damage spells. Anytime you hit with Duress, you're fine. You get a little bit of information. Which dash creatures do they have? Heel Cutters coming in for Pat. So that's helpful as well.
I'm counting 11 cards here.
Let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm at 12 if Utter End comes in. So Utter End probably not, certainly not on the draw, probably not on the play either. So yeah, 11 looks right.
What are you taking out to make room for all that?
So you've got your Thought Seizes and your Abzan Charms. Those are cards that cost you 2 life some of the time or all the time. That's life that you can't afford to pay, so those come out. You can shave an Elspeth. Certainly the Ugin is going to come out as an 8-mana spell. So you're basically trying to trim those cards that, if you look through the Abzan deck, the cards that naturally just don't feel very good against mono red, and you're going to try to go cheap and go interactive, and that way all your cards interact. Hopefully you can overwhelm the opponent.
All right, excellent. Good games the rest of the way, Matt Sperling.
Thanks, appreciate it.
And welcome back to the feature match area. So, gentlemen, we heard it directly from the players there. Matt Sperling making some major changes to his list, Ifro, to get out all those cards that just don't do what he wants to do in the matchup. How much does it shore it up for him?
Huge. It's very important. As Rachel noted in the pregame, the game 1's tough. And game 1 is actually pretty tough for Abzan in general. It can be one of those decks that people kind of steer away from when you test a lot of game 1s because its game 1 matchup against the field just isn't great. What makes Abzan very powerful is that it has a lot of great sideboard options. And so it doesn't have a lot of terrible matchups game 1. You're playing a lot of good mid-range cards, Courser, Siege Rhino, Den Protector. These are good cards, but you're able to basically make your deck an efficient machine against basically everything after sideboard, and that's where you want to be. So games 2 and 3 generally get much better for Abzan across the board, and this is no exception.
Pat Cox hoping for a better draw this time. He kept that 1 lander. It didn't work out for him. He needs to win 2 games in a row if he's going to get to platinum status. It's a huge step for him to get to that point again for next year. He was platinum this year as well. Now his opponent Sperling, he came in and wasn't even at gold coming in. He did hit gold, and then he went right past it and went all the way to platinum status himself.
So Cox on another mulligan here.
He's on 5 cards here.
He's on
6 cards, sorry.
Excuse me,
Another
card
mulligan
6.
in addition to the one last game is what I meant.
Gotcha. And you'll see that he is going to keep this hand, and then he's going to go ahead and scry. This is the, we were calling it the Vancouver mulligan rule. Taking
This
a
is
look
a
at that this
great
time.
addition.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty cool thing that Ian Duke and his coworkers in R&D are going to get a bunch of feedback from the pros and, I don't know, have some exciting meetings about it when you get home.
Absolutely.
Ian, we liked it.
Oh, that meeting's done. What do you guys
Feedback
wanna
has
do?
generally been positive so far, but there's more to discuss for sure.
All right, so we're underway here in Game 2. Pat Cox, a much better draw here. He's going to kick things off with a Monastery Swift Spear into tap land for Sperling now. Pat Cox had kept that on top, so he knew already what it was. He's going to cast his second Monastery Swift Spear, and a very fast start here for Cox, who, if he can start firing off a bunch of burn spells, he's
don't
going
know
to be
what
able to pile on a ton of damage.
I don't know what it's worth, but I really, really, really dislike when someone scries something at the top and then just plays it without shuffling into their hand, letting your opponent know that, hey, I really want to draw this extra creature. This is important for my hand. Everything about it I really dislike, especially playing on a top 8 stage. I mean, these two are friends, but that's just too much information.
He did give away something there for sure. We saw Pat play that Monastery Swift Spear basically directly from the top of his library onto the battlefield. Now, interesting here, Sperling, I did see he's got a Fleecemane Lion in his hand, but he hasn't cast it this turn, indicating maybe an ultimate price or something along those lines.
Right. He has the ultimate price, and again, something that play does is it kind of signifies, hey, I've got a bunch of spells in hand. I want this 1/2 prowess creature. This is important enough for me to keep. Playing Fleecemane Lion means he's probably just going to get a Lightning Strike and take 4 damage. Might as well just leave up that ultimate price and try to take less damage when the Lightning Strike actually does come.
Okay, so Pat Cox is going to attack with both. There's no blocks, and Pat Cox says, you know what, I'm going to pass priority here.
Well, Sperling has no 3rd land. Could be tough.
So he's forced to ultimate price. Use up his mana here. He can't just sit here and do nothing.
Yeah, he does have 3 2-mana spells, and his 3rd mana does mean Nissa, which is 4 mana. So can definitely get rolling once that land actually comes in and has some staying power before that as well.
There's an Abbot of Keral Keep hitting a mountain, which is exactly what
Really
Pat
nice
Cox
hit
wanted
for
to
Pat
hit
Cox.
here. Huh?
That was excellent.
And he finds the mountain to play a Zergo Bell Striker before passing the turn back, and it looks like Sperling has in fact found that land.
And importantly, an untapped land here. A lot of the lands in Abzan come into play tapped, but this is crucial. It lets him play Nissa this turn and set up his land for next turn.
Yeah, the land next turn is also huge because he waited on that Fleecemane Line. He also has Dromoka's Command in hand. So what that means is that Fleecemane Line can come down. Dromoka's Command can protect it from a burn spell, have it fight another creature, or just block and get a counter. Lots of great things you can do to get a 2-for-1 with that Dromoka's Command, and potentially just leave a Fleecemane Line behind, which is even better than a 2-for-1 because it's still to be dealt with.
But in the meantime, here comes Lightning Strike from Patrick Cox.
Well, this was Searing
Searing
Blood.
Blood.
Oh,
actually.
Searing Blood,
yeah,
actually.
Searing Blood took down Nissa. That did 3 to Matt Sperling. Then he took 3, 5, 7 more.
Total of 10 damage that turn.
Huge hit, and he's going to have to settle for Fleecemane Lion with a ultimate price. As a backup plan, he is going to take a damage for casting ultimate price here as well. So his life total is falling and falling quickly. He may just need to leave up command here, huh?
Totally.
I mean, if he fires off ultimate price and Pat Cox has any of his burn spells that do 4 damage, that would be it. Heel Cutter with Dash. Goblin Heel Cutter is a card that has popped up in the sideboards of these red decks, and when it comes in, it tends to have a pretty profound effect on the board.
I'm gonna pay a life ultimate price that.
All right, he's going to ultimate price the Heel Cutter before combat so that the trigger never happens.
Still going to go to 1 life.
Indeed, so he's going to trade off Fleecemane Lion or he's going to eat Abbot of Keral Keep, but he's going to take 3, go down to 1. Any burn spell for Pat Cox. Now Matt Sperling has a real awkward dance where he's got to leave up the mana for his Dromoka's Command.
That's right.
Trigger.
Which he is going to be able to do even with the Nissa here. He is hanging on by a thread.
The Nissa was a big draw because Matt could not cast 2 spells because of the lands he had. He would have taken a point of damage. And so Pat could have just attacked with his 2 creatures, forced Sperling to do something, and the Lightning Strike could have finished him off. Drawing Nissa means he gets the land he needs for Jamoka's command without having to take any damage and has a second Balker. So now Pat actually does need to draw something. Of course, Sperling's now forced to keep up this mana every turn, which is not the best spot either.
Languish off the top here for Sperling, but it's too late for that. His life total is at 1. It's all about burn spells now and how Pat Cox can maneuver himself into a situation where he can resolve one of these and finish off Sperling to force a game 3.
Yeah, Sperling's chances to win this game are very, very, very small at this point.
Yes.
Being stuck on 3/4, just the 1 Sandstep Citadel, just can't get access to the white and black mana he needs to even cast his spells that could potentially prolong the game, but probably still not win it.
Sperling's going to attack for 3 damage with the Fleecemane Lion and pass the turn back.
End of turn Lightning Strike.
Okay.
Will be met with Jamoka's command.
Yes. So he's going to prevent the damage from that. The Fleecemane Lion's going to fight the Swift Spear. This is with the triggers on the stack.
Go ahead.
So Sperling still alive, but again, basically any source of damage here from Pat Cox will finish things off. He's found an Eidolon of the Great Revel, and he even sets it up pretty nicely here with the Lightning Strike, where he plays the Eidolon first so that even if Sperling had another Dromoka's command, he would still lose. So that is going to do it for game number 2. Pat Cox fights back and is going to force a game 3, winning the post-sideboarded game against Matt Sperling while following in game 1, the game that's supposed to be, well, a little easier for him, right?
Yeah, we talked about sideboarding. I think we all agree that sideboarding favored Matt Sperling more than it favored Patrick Cox, but you can see both players agree on what's important post-sideboard. It's all about the Abzan deck bringing in more defensive creatures and Pat Cox bringing in ways to get past those creatures like the Heel Cutter, for example.
Yeah, I mean, Pat Cox was still in the play that game, which, you know, it does get a lot better for Abzan after sideboarding, but not necessarily enough better to overcome being on the draw. That is a huge, huge advantage for Patrick Cox's red aggressive deck. It still just makes the matchup close. I feel like Sperling is well set up after board. We saw him bringing in double-digit cards. They're all very powerful. His mana didn't cooperate too well. He didn't have any Coursers or Siege Rhinos. And Pat's draw was pretty strong on that mold of 6. So I think that Sperling has a pretty sizable advantage on the play game 3. But, you know, it's going to come down to those opening hands. Like, Patrick Cox's amazing draws are very tough to beat, and if Sperling doesn't have a great draw of his own, you know, he can definitely lose.
You know, one of the cards we saw, and, you know, Randy was talking about it earlier in the weekend, as a group were in these new Planeswalkers. The one we saw in this game, of course, was Nissa, the Sage Animist here. And
we didn't quite see the Sage Animist.
Sorry, you're right. We saw Vastwood Seer and not Sage Animist, which I think might have been better for for Sperling. But thoughts on these things, Ian? Are you guys happy with how they've turned out?
Yeah, we're really happy with all the double-faced Planeswalkers. They were each challenging in their own way. We knew we wanted to make each one different from each other because, you know, these are important characters. They have different storylines. We wanted to reflect that in the cards. And so creating 5 of these that all function mechanically different was a super big challenge for R&D, and we're pleased to see them all showing up for the most part this weekend here at the Pro Tour. Nissa in particular is one of the really interesting ones because even if you don't get her to her Planeswalker side or don't do so in a hurry, she's still just a great value card. You know, we've all seen Borderland Ranger and Civic Wayfinder show up in Pro Tours past. Nissa is almost just as good on her front side and then has the power to turn into a powerful Planeswalker later on in the game.
Now, on the flip side of this equation, or at least the one for this matchup here, another card that's really had a big impact, and I know I've heard a lot of pros sing its praises. I know Chapin's high on the card and many others. Eric, I wanted to get your opinion on Abbot of Keral Keep. You know, is this thing one of the best cards from Origins? Is this a headliner?
Yeah, this card is really, really powerful. I feel like kind of across the board when I first looked at the Origin set, I undervalued a lot of cards. Nissa was one of them. Abbot of Keral Keep was another one, although Abbot I thought was pretty good. It's better than I thought, and a lot of these cards just really play out extremely well. The card advantage, the 2-drop, the prowess, it really just has everything that you actually want. You know, sometimes you don't get an extra card out of it, but it's often because you flipped over a spell that you wouldn't have been able to cast anyway. So you kind of are getting, you know, a fraction of a card there because you're getting a better draw step. And yeah, it just deals a lot of damage. It's very threatening. In combination with cards like Searing Blood, you know, you play this thing, you play a Searing Blood, it becomes a 3/2. They take 3, they have no blocker.
Yeah.
That's just a lot of damage,
Yeah.
and it's making the red decks really powerful.
And we've seen Abbot of Keral keep responsible for a lot of damage. All right. Who wants to watch a game 3?
Oh, I do.
Yeah, this is a huge one here.
Awesome match. A lot on the line here. Really interesting to see whether Pat Cox can make it to his platinum status or not.
Yeah, this has so much on the line for Pat Cox, and of course for Sperling looking to win the Pro Tour, right? They both are. You know, we don't want to lose track of their main goal of winning the Pro Tour here, but you know there are bigger picture things at play for both players as well, and Pat Cox is going to have to slog through on a post-board game on the draw, and he's going to have to find 20-plus damage to
He has
get
a turn
through.
2 Searing Blood, which is
Ooh.
rarely going to do much in this matchup. It's usually going to finish a creature off. But the fact that he's able to force through this Glory Chaser and deal 3 damage and kill a creature.
Oh no, Sperling just missed his 3rd land drop.
Wow.
Yeah, Sperling kept a powerful hand, but with just 2 lands. He
man.
does have Siege Rhinos and Hero's Downfall.
He's got 2 of them. I see he's got a Farika's Cure as well, Ian.
Yeah, but he's really relying on hitting his land drops in order for this hand to pan out. Meanwhile, Patrick Cox has a pretty well-balanced hand with a good mix of burn and early creatures, and he's off to a good start here.
This next draw step or 2 for Matt Sperling could spell his fate in this match. As you said, Pat Cox doing what he does, though. Can't quite see what he played here. There we go. All right, so he's got a Zergo Bell Striker and a Monastery Swift Spear, and Sperling does find a land. It doesn't enter the battlefield tap like many of his lands do, but it produces all 3 colors, so I think we're going to get a game here.
This is a lot of damage coming in here.
Pat Cox plays a Heel Cutter with Dash. That changes things pretty significantly. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and Sperling's already down to 5. And, of course, with that
card.
Heel Cutter in hand, even a Siege Rhino at this point might be too late, and I do believe that Sperling missed on his land, but he's got Drown
He's
in
got
Sorrow.
Drown in Sorrow.
Drew
and
Urborg, which is actually a great land.
Oh, he did draw a land. He drew Urborg. All right, so he's going to sweep the board. This does kill everything, so Sperling's not done yet. He's at 5, though.
Yeah, Pat Cox can dash in a Heel Cutter on the following turn, but it looks like from our hand viewer, he does not have a burn spell that can deal damage directly to Matt Sperling just yet. So Sperling may have a small, 1 or 2 turn window here to start playing Siege Rhinos and get back in this game.
Oh, man, this is going to be close because we know if this game goes longer, then it's going to favor
But it does
Pat
look
Cox.
like... oh, is that...
That's 3
Exquisite
damage.
Firecraft off the top is huge here. So now I believe...
That which is not lethal.
It's not lethal, it's true. Siege Rhino can come down here, but then we'll see another dashed Heel Cutter to come through the Siege Rhino. But then we'll maybe see another Siege Rhino from Sperling the following turn. So we could see a little bit of a back and forth.
This
is
is
getting
going to
exciting.
be a tight one, kids. Hang on to your seats. Here's Siege Rhino number 1.
Like Sperling's hand sets up very well for this situation. The real question is, what is Pat Cox going to draw? Heel Cutter could knock him down to 2. Siege Rhino picking back up to 5. The Burn Spell can knock him down to 1, but then he's got Fleece mainline with Farika's Cure up, and the Siege Rhinos can end the game in 2 turns.
So Pat Cox just wants to find like a Wild Slash here, right?
Well, Wild Slash should not be in his deck because we are post sideboard.
He pulls those out.
But he does have a lot of 1-mana cards. He could draw a Monastery Swift Spear that's going to put Sperling to 1 with the Heel Cutter right now, and a Siege Rhino would be forced to play defense, and then Exquisite Firecraft would end the game. Yep,
He
there it
did
is.
find the Swift Spear.
And a Roast.
And a Roast, so he's going to get in for 2 and knock Sperling back down to 3. Sperling, though, has another Siege Rhino at the ready. He even drew a Courser of Crewfix, but I don't think he has time for that at the moment.
So this turn he can either go Farika's Cure, the Swift Spear, and play a Fleece Mane Lion, or he can play the Fleece Mane Lion, wait until Cox's turn and try to Farika's Cure, the dashed Heel Cutter, or he can simply play a Siege Rhino. All of which will leave him alive unless Patrick Cox top decks a burn spell or some other way to force through damage.
He drew a land. He's got an Abbot of Keral Keep in his hand, though. Still has the Exquisite Firecraft, of course, and the Heel Cutter.
Well, if he had played the heel cutter last turn, the game was over. He would have dealt the extra, Sperling would be at 1.
Yeah.
And
But-
I don't think there's anything he could have done to come back.
All right, so here it is, though. Exquisite Firecraft target you, Matt Sperling. You go to 1, but Sperling does respond.
This was actually a really nice turn
This
for
was
Sperling
super
there.
sweet for Sperling, right?
Yes.
Because he got to not die, which was the first order of business.
And take out the Swift Spear.
And take out the Swift Spear.
And now Pat Cox doesn't have enough mana to dash the heel cutter. And now Sperling gets to play a Siege Rhino going back up to 4.
Sperling just hanging on here. He's already gained 6 and then another 2. So he's actually gained 8 life this game,
Yeah.
right? No,
He
he's
has.
gained 5 life this game.
Oh, he's
And
gained
now
8 life.
8. Now
Yeah.
8, yeah.
yeah.
That was an Abbot of Keral Keep off the top for Pat Cox. Can he find an Exquisite Firecraft? He finds Zergo.
Well, next turn, Sperling gets to play Courser, gain a life, and leave up Hero's Downfall.
Oh, man, Sperling is still in this.
I believe he left a Case of Koilos on top of his deck.
Okay, here's Zergo off of the Abbot. And Pat Cox is just going to pass a turn back with an Abbot and a Heel Cutter in hand, trying to set up a lethal strike here.
There's an untapped land, Caves of Koilos, I think. So
yeah,
he can,
that's what he left there.
He
yeah.
can play the Courser and a untapped land, giving him 3 for Hero's Downfall.
And putting him up to 5. The gap between 4 and 5 so important here. There's
Forest on the
no-
top is exactly what he wanted. Not another land, though.
Plays the land off the top, jumps up to 5. What does Pat Cox find on the
I
top
think
of
he
his
wanted
library?
to attack that turn.
Yeah, I'm wondering at what point he's going to start attacking here, because you do want to strike a balance between not leaving yourself dead to something like a Heel Cutter, but also you want to kill the red deck before top deck's more burn.
So Abbot of Keral Keep finds a second copy of Abbot at Keral Keep, which finds a Lightning Strike. Unfortunately for Pat Cox, he doesn't have another mountain in hand to actually cast that.
Yeah, I think that was a great turn to attack with Siege Rhino with the Downfall in hand to protect against the Heel Cutter, although this is a little bit safer, although you might be giving Pat an extra draw step. I haven't done the math. He gets to play Elspeth this turn and gain a life, which is pretty huge.
He's going to be at 6 here. Has Sperling turned the corner? Here's Elspeth, Sun's champion.
Now, importantly, Elspeth, I believe, turns on a Searing Blood in Patrick Cox's hand that he's been holding on to for a while here. I'll have to verify that for you.
That he didn't have a solid target for here.
Yeah.
Okay, pass the turn back to Pat Cox. Draws a mountain now. He was so close.
Well, this Den Protector can just bring back Farika's Cure for 3 more life next turn at a minimum if he wants it, because of land as well. That'll put him up to 9, and that is pretty far out of burn range. This
Yeah.
Elspeth will go ultimate in just a few turns. It looks like Sperling is content just sitting back. I think I would have been attacking with Siege Rhino and trying to threaten life total, but I can certainly see where Sperling is going with not wanting to get dashed out of the game.
He
I
does
guess
know
a pair
about
of
the
heel
heel
cutters.
cutter.
Yeah, second
Yeah.
heel cutter I guess could have been devastating.
Yeah, and that was my mistake there. It wasn't a second blood, it wasn't a Searing Blood, but actually a second Goblin Heel Cutter in hand there too.
Okay, so it turns out Sperling is playing great. No big surprise there.
Pat Cox has the ability to dash both. Sperling not concerned.
Well, now Pat Cox is hell-bent, and I think Sperling knows that he's just not going to lose this game.
All right, so everything into the red zone. Your Courser and your Siege Rhino cannot block.
This is like almost an act of desperation from Pat Cox here. These Elspeth tokens get to trade with
Abbots.
the Abbots, which is just great for him.
Yeah, I cannot really envision a no, I can't envision any scenarios that
We almost had
Sperling
one.
can lose this game. I was trying to think of the Yoel Larson scenario of running 4-point burn spells, but this Den Protector can just get back Farika's Cure, can take out a creature. He gets to make 3 more Elspeth tokens. Like,
It does look like Sperling's turned the corner and is going to run away with this game here as the board gets uncluttered a bit. One of the heel cutters dies. The other one goes back into the hand for Cox.
Cox did get through 2 damage there, which you know, I think he's trying to open up a scenario of like top decking 2 4-point burn spells in a row.
Yes.
But even with that, I mean, Sperling's going to be able to close the game out really quickly here. And as Eric pointed out, Den Protector can get back Farika's Cure, gaining even more life. Courser is active every turn here.
Yeah, Den Protector is terrible news for Pat Cox here. I mean, there's even a Siege Rhino in there.
Well, this Zergo Bellstriker's not doing a great job of blocking these giant monsters out of Abzan either, so.
Right. But at instant speed, Sperling has access to that Farika's Cure and an extra 2 life, a mountain off the top for Pat Cox. He's got Goblin Heel Cutter in his hand.
He's going to have to hard cast it as a blocker just to live another turn.
Yeah, Pat Cox has fallen all the way to 8 here.
Which means Den
Den Protector's going to unmorph. And he's just going to Farika's Cure the Heel Cutter right now, put Sperling up to 7. And he is on the verge of advancing to the semis here after a great start from Pat Cox.
Yeah, incredible comeback this game.
Sperling misses his 3rd land drop.
Bouncing back and forth between, you know, 1 life, 4 life, 2 life, 5 life, just on the brink of destruction at any moment, and claws his way back to victory here.
And that's it. Sperling advances. Pat Cox has to settle for a semifinal finish. You can see him shaking his head. A tough loss for him, but a great win for Sperling. These two friends, I'm sure we'll have some chats about the match later on as it goes, but for now, Sperling's on to the semifinals.
Yeah, there was a key turn where he could have played the Heel Cutter with the Swiss Spear. The Swiss Spear was the perfect card. He went for the Roast plan, and yeah, he just ended up a point short. Like the Heel Cutter represented more damage.
That was such a close game.
Yeah,
right?
very intense.
Just watching it, it was like Sperling was dead on the stack at one point there, and the Farika's Cure got him back out.
The one of Farika's
The one of.
Cure, yeah.
He's got 1 in his board, and it worked for him. All right, so that's it. That sets our second semifinalist in place. We've got 2 more to decide, but before we do, let's head back to the news desk and Rich Hagan.
Thanks very much to the 3 wise men there, who are bringing you all the action from the quarterfinals. What we're going to do, we're going to take a look at our top 8 brackets, see how our morning is progressing and what is still to come here at the home of Magic the Gathering. We began at the bottom of the bracket with Sweden's Joel Larsson with red aggro taking on more red in the shape of Stephen Neal. And in the end, it went 3 games. It was Joel Larsson who took that one with his red aggro deck. You have just watched Matt Sperling with Abzan control against Pat Cox with red aggro. And we kind of can't believe we're saying it really the way that 3rd game started out, but it is Matt Sperling who advances to the semifinals, which means that Sperling, having just edged his way past 1 red aggro deck, will have to do the same later this afternoon as he plays his semifinal against the Sweden World Magic Cup captain, Joel Larsson. Up to the top half of the bracket, coming in a little while, we will have Kentaro Yamamoto with his Abzan Megamorph deck up against the blue-red ENSOUL artifact deck of Mike Sigrist, who is chasing Eric Froelich for Player of the Year. Sigrist must make the final, otherwise Eric Froelich will be Player of the Year. If Sigrist goes the distance to the last match of the season, he will be Player of the Year, and indeed the World Magic Cup captain for Team America. But now we are going to focus together, Luis and I, on our 3rd quarterfinal, and that means Australia's Paul Jackson against Stefan BERRIOS of the United States. So why don't we take a look for you at Paul Jackson, one of the lesser-known players here in our top 8, but he does have a title to his name, that is Grand Prix Sydney from last year. Just 24, Jackson, a gold pro, 31 lifetime pro points, only been playing for a short time at the higher levels of the game. That $7,000 or so is going to go up significantly this weekend, not least because $40,000 is on offer to the champion here. So why don't we take a look at what Jackson is running. It is a green-red devotion list. And, well, in a sense, the clue is in the name, that we've got a lot of cards here that we have seen plenty of in previous Standard. 4 Xenaghost the Reveler, 4 Courser of Krufix, Dragonlord Atarka, Elvish Mystic, lots of 4s. You see Rattleclaw Mystic, 4, Sylvan Caryatid, 4, Whisperwood Elemental, 4. This is a deck that is very, very solid indeed. Plenty of big numbers through. 3 Genesis Hydra, 3 Polukranos, and a couple of Nissa Vastwood Seer in the lands. Notice 4 Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. So, Luis, not an entirely unknown deck, it's fair to say, but walk us through what is Green-Red Devotion trying to do, what is Jackson trying to do?
All he really wants to do is play Elvish Mystic, Rattleclaw Mystic, and Sylvan Caryatid in order to cast, giant monsters like Dragonlord Atarka or Genesis Hydra for 6 or 7. The deck's pretty simple. It's a bunch of cards that make mana and a bunch of cards that are expensive and powerful.
Right, so in a sense, we would call this a ramp deck.
Definitely.
Right, okay, so in that sense, is it fairly non-interactive with opponents? Is it very much, I have a plan, I think my plan is going to be better than yours most of the time, let's see if I can execute my plan? How interactive is the deck?
Yeah, it is not very interactive. Cards like Atarka and Polukranos can interact, but they take a ton of mana to do so. So before that stage, the deck really doesn't do anything to the opponent.
There is a temptation when there are new toys in Standard to play with new toys, not least because that's where edges so often lie. There's a reason we put the Pro Tour right near the start of a new Standard season so that people like you can find the ways to use the new cards. This deck, more or less, says, you know what, I'm going to stick with something tried and tested. How do you feel Green-Red Devotion fared through the weekend? What was your team's take on this archetype?
We think it got a little worse relative to the field. This was one of the best, if not the best deck before Origins. So it getting a little worse certainly makes it still a very good deck, but we didn't think it got that much from the new set. Nissa Vastwood Seer is the most notable addition. For the most part, it's still a great deck, it didn't change very much.
Right, all right. Well, Paul Jackson is from Australia, and we're in America, which means there aren't an awful lot of Australians here with us, but what there is a very famous New Zealander who's having a fantastic Pro Tour season. He's been testing with Paul Jackson. Waiting for us across the studio is Marshall Sutcliffe with Jason Chung.
Hey there, Marshall Sutcliffe here. I've got Jason Chung with me. Now, Jason, you had a pretty exciting tournament yourself. A lot of swings, a lot of ups and downs for you watching. But when it comes to Paul Jackson, now he's actually a close friend of yours, right?
Yeah, I first met Paul at a GP, I think 2 years ago, and we both did not do very well, but we kind of bonded, had some drinks after the tournament, and then I met him again early this year for Pro Tour Brussels, and then we actually grew closer, and now he's a really good friend of mine.
You actually travel with him?
Yep, I've traveled with Paul on all 3 of the Pro Tours I've been to this year, which was Brussels, DC, and then this Pro Tour here. Now,
this is Paul's first time in the top 8 experiencing this level of success. How's he handled it?
I think he's really calm and collective.
He seemed like it.
He has a really good demeanor, and I respect him so much as a player. Whenever I see him play a top 8 match or whatever, any match for that matter, he just is really calm, and it feels like he's always winning, even though he's not.
I wish I was like that.
Yeah.
We did the announcement for the top 8 yesterday, and I was the one doing it, and he came up, and he was just cool as a cucumber as he rolled up there. And I thought, you got to be a little antsy, right? And you just made your first top 8, but no, he just seemed fine with it.
I think we were more happy for it than he was.
Yeah, I heard you guys. I definitely heard that. Now, you're from New Zealand. Paul's from Australia. He's from Perth. So how does that work? Do you guys get to hang out when you're at home, or is it only when you're out traveling that you actually get to chill with Paul?
We only really hang out when we're traveling, but we actually travel so much. Because we get 2 GPs every year, we will always be in those 2 GPs. And the last Grand Prix, it was in my hometown, Auckland. And after spending a day, I think it was after spending 2 hours with Paul in Brussels, it's are you considering going to Auckland? You can stay at mine. He ended up coming over, and then we just hung out. It's really good being able to connect with all my friends in Australia.
That's great. What's on the line here for Paul today? We know this is his first Pro Tour top 8, an amazing accomplishment in and of itself. But there's also future considerations on the line for Paul. What is he looking at?
Despite Paul not having like a really big name, he actually came into this tournament with a lot of pro points. He qualified through this tournament through silver, and he has 22 pro points right now. So on the line coming into this tournament, he really wanted to reach gold, and he really wanted to get captain. He's achieved both of those, and now he's playing for platinum. A finals appearance gets him platinum.
So if he makes it to the finals, he'll have platinum for all of next year, but either way, he's locked up captaincy and gold.
Yep.
It's really impressive.
It's really great.
Yeah, that's great for him. You must be excited. Is it weird for you watching? Like, are you nervous for him?
I'm definitely nervous for him. Last Pro Tour, he was watching me, and he was in the same place, like the backstage watching me, and now I'm at the backstage watching him.
What about last night? What was the testing scenario like? Did you stay up all night testing, or was it a thing where you were like, you go to bed, I'll take care of this?
So yesterday, Paul Jackson and Matt Rogers, which is another New Zealander, they were testing the matchup a lot, and I was actually at a Taylor Swift concert. But as soon as I came back, I was just like, all right, Paul, you need to get some sleep. He went to sleep. Matt was really tired, so he went to sleep, and then me and some other Australians, Maitland Cameron, we just like tested the matchup, and then in the morning we just told Paul how it is, and we're also like playing a few games.
Okay.
Here and there.
You feel pretty good about it?
Game one is really rough.
Okay.
But if Paul somehow gets game one, I feel really confident about it.
Okay, well, he feels real confident about game one. Hopefully it goes well for Paul Jackson. Let's send it back over to Rich and Luis at the news desk.
Thanks very much, Marshall. Well, on the other side of the table from Paul Jackson will be Stefan BERRIOS of the United States. Why don't we take a look at his player profile and show you how he has made it here to the top 8. He is here playing in his first Pro Tour top 8. There you see him, the smiling face, 30-year-old Silver Pro, 44 lifetime Pro points, 7-2, and then that intentional draw to get into the top 8, and a very impressive 5-1 in draft. What about his deck, though? Because this is a very interesting deck. And there you see Blue-Red ENSOUL Artifact, Chief of the Foundry, Hangerback Walker, Ornithopter, Luis. These are all sorts of cards that not only have we not necessarily seen much of before, but that we might not have expected to see here. Although Hangerback Walker, that's really been a card this weekend.
Hangerback Walker has been one of the standouts. It's seen play in all sorts of different decks, from control decks to green-white aggro to, of course, this ENSOUL Artifact deck.
So walk us through, what is this deck trying to do? What is its game plan? How is it faring in the tournament as a whole?
Well, the first plan and the best plan is draw ENSOUL Artifact. We found that that's the card that correlated the most with you winning the game, just because it lets you attack for 5 on turn 2 frequently in the air with Ornithopter or with a Springleaf Drum or with a Ghostfire Blade. And ENSOULing a Darksteel Citadel gives you a 5/5 indestructible. So ENSOUL Artifact, definitely the reason this deck exists. But other than that, it's trying to take advantage of a lot of the different artifact synergies, like Chief of the Foundry, making all your artifact creatures +1/+1, Shrapnel Blast, just dealing 5 damage for 2 mana, and then cards like Whirler Rogue and Pia and Keral Nalar, which give you a bunch of artifacts and a bunch of abilities to do with artifacts.
Well, there's no doubt that this matchup is as far as you could get for old standard against new standard. It really is Green-Red Devotion or all the toys with ENSOUL Artifact. Why don't we find out whether it's out with the old and in with the new? It's time for the third quarterfinal here at Pro Tour Magic Origins.